Okay, welcome. We're going to just do a floor exercise now with the team to help us really think about this idea of how do we think about and understand how each other think about what makes a good worker, what are the essential ingredients, and also the question of how do we as a team change and adapt and improve our practice, what makes that actually happen. So I'm going to invite people to do kind of a lineup, a little bit like the usual suspects lineup, and in the room that you're in, we're hoping that there'll be a wall that you could do this against. So I'm going to invite people to think about the positions that we take and remind you that this is just a playful exercise. This is not set in stone, and I'll say more about that later. Along the back wall of the room that you're in, I want you to have an imaginary line. And the question that I'm asking you to think about is, what is the most important thing for a worker in this field? On one end, it's about instinct. It's about just getting it naturally, just having that sense of what works and what doesn't work. And on the other end, evidence, the ability to learn the steps, to learn from what people have worked out and the ways of kind of approaching and doing this work. So what I'm going to invite people to do in the team is to choose a position on that scale. If you're completely into instinct, you'd be the far end of the left. If you're completely into evidence, you'd be the far right. Most of us might be somewhere in the middle. Choose a position that you feel personally you're comfortable in. The one trick or the one challenge is that I'm not going to allow anybody in the team to be in the same position as another one. So you can't all line up down the middle. You've got to haggle with each other. You've got to argue it out. Why would you be more down that end than I want to be where you are? And while you're having that haggling, kind of invite people to think about why they would position themselves there and not a little further up there. Try to kind of have these conversations. Explore what you think in your heart about what is most important for a worker. We're going to pause the video at this point, and then I'm going to have a second stage of this exercise. So we'll now pause for a moment. Okay, so now that you've all lined up, I'd invite you to have a look down the line, have a think about, are there any people in places you're surprised about? Are there people that you would have thought they'd be in a very different position? Hold those ideas in your mind and hold your position in this line, because I'm now going to I invite you to imagine that there's another line, but it's kind of going down the centre of the room, away from the wall you're standing against. And in this lineup, I want you to hold exactly the position you're in on the first line and think about how far forwards you wish to walk from the line. This is about what actually creates change in a team. On the one hand, is change really driven by top-down kind of management, ordered, I'm not going to pay you if you don't do this. And on the other end of the room, the far end from where you're all lined up at the moment, it would be kind of, if you like, bottom up. That change actually only happens when teams develop a culture that says, well, this is how we do it round here. Yeah. So one is managerial orders, if you like, at the end of the day, but a top-down ordering, and the other is kind of a bottom-up, kind of the development of a culture of this is how we do things. So what I'm going to invite you to do next is, if you like, decide where you want to be and then walk to that position. Don't kind of look at everybody else and follow them. Go where you want to be. This is just a game, it's playful, and I want to emphasize the point before you do this, that where you stand today is where you stand today. Tomorrow you'd be allowed to stand in a completely different place, because do you know what? We change our position on these questions. We change where we are according to all kinds of things. So we don't need to feel locked down, that this is kind of the position you're in or that you're getting positioned in, because people may be shoving you up and down the line a bit from where you want it to be. So I'm going to now let you do that, and then after that you'll have a chance to have some reflection on where you've arrived. So I'll pause the video again. So as you look around, are there any surprises? And ask yourself, if everybody in the team was stood exactly where you were standing, in exactly the same spot, would that make for a better team or a worse team? Would it make for a more stable or a less stable team? Is there something about the spread of positions that is valuable or difficult in the team? And finally, I want you to choose someone. It's a little bit like kind of blind date, but choose someone on the floor who's perhaps standing as far away from you as you can see. Someone who's not in your position. And I'd invite you to go and have a conversation with that person in a curious, respectful, dare I say it, mentalizing way. Try and make sense of how and why they felt that they were positioned where they were, and help them make sense of how you came to feel like you had to be in the position you were in. Just explore each other's states of mind rather than trying to convince each other to move away. So I'd like to invite you to have that conversation, and then you can do some feedback in the larger group. Thanks.